I've got this story that an old family friend Lisa used to tell me all the time when I was growing up. It's one of those life lessons that stick with you, you know? And to her credit, I've never forgotten it. Whenever hitchhiking comes up in conversation, this story pops into my head, and honestly, it still makes me a bit nervous when I think about it. So let me set the stage. We're talking about the early 80s here, and Lisa, who's in her mid-20s at the time, is this incredibly kind-hearted person. She's always ready to lend a hand to someone in need. I can't picture her being any different back then, which makes this story all the more remarkable. One day, Lisa's driving into the city, about a 2-hour drive from her hometown. As she's cruising along, she spots a guy walking on the side of the road. You can probably guess what happens next. He sticks out his thumb in classic hitchhiker fashion. Without missing a beat, Lisa pulls over and asks if he needs a lift. She later tells me he was polite, but a tad on the shy side, when he asked for a ride into the city. Lisa, being the kind soul that she is, flashes a warm smile and opens the passenger door. The guy tosses his bag in the back seat, buckles up, and they're on their way. During the ride, they chat about all sorts of stuff. Friends, the latest news, you know, just light and happy small talk. Lisa feels like they're hitting it off really well. In fact, she goes the extra mile and treats him to dinner at a pit stop that's a bit over halfway to their destination. But here's the strange part. They both seem a bit flustered and awkward when it's time to pay. Turns out money had come up during their conversation, and it's pretty clear the guy is in a tough spot financially. That's likely why he was hitchhiking in the first place. After some hesitation, he accepts Lisa's offer to cover the meal, and they continue their journey. When they finally roll into the city, he's overflowing with gratitude for the ride and the food. He asks to be dropped off downtown, and just before stepping out of the car, he does something unexpected. He asks for Lisa's phone number so they can stay in touch. Lisa, excited about the idea of a new friendship, jots down her number, and they part ways. Now this is the part of the story that used to give me the creeps as a kid. Not because something bad happened, but because everything seemed to work out so nicely. Lisa's expression changes when she tells me what happened next. About a week later, she gets a phone call from this guy. But here's the twist. He doesn't let her say a word after she answers. He just launches into this speech, telling her that she should thank her lucky stars that she was raised to be so kind-hearted. Why? Well, because when he first got into her car, he had some seriously dark intentions. He planned to harm her when they stopped at that pit stop, steal her car, and leave her stranded. But something changed. See, after Lisa treated him so kindly and shared a meal with him, he just couldn't go through with it. He couldn't bear the thought of hurting such a genuinely nice person. So, he implores her never to pick up another hitchhiker, and then he hangs up. After that call, Lisa never hears from him again. When she tries to redial the number, all she gets is a payphone. And that, my friends, is the story that's made me wary of hitchhiking my whole life. In the summer of 2019, me and my 2 buddies decided to go on a road trip down to New Orleans. We were aiming to reach our destination at around 11 p.m., and everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly as we cruised along the highway. It was getting close to 10 p.m., and we were just about an hour away from where we intended to be when our buddy Mark suddenly pipes up, saying he desperately needed to use the restroom. Now our friend Steve was the one behind the wheel, and he wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea of making a pit stop, which sparked a bit of a heated back-and-forth debate. After a few minutes of this, Steve eventually gave in and decided to pull off the highway and into a rest area. It was late, and the rest area was pretty quiet, with just a few cars scattered here and there in the parking lot. Mark rushed out to use the restroom, while Steve and I stayed in the car, patiently waiting for him to come back. Now here's where things took a turn. After about a minute, our tranquility was shattered by Mark sprinting back from the restrooms in a complete panic, and he was urgently telling Steve to drive. You see, Mark was known for his pranks, so at first we kind of brushed it off, thinking he was just pulling another one of his jokes. Steve told him to quit it and even had a bit of a laugh about it. But Mark was adamant, swearing he wasn't joking, and he pointed outside the car. That's when we all saw this mysterious figure. This guy, walking toward us without uttering a single word. Well, let me tell you, Steve wasted no time. He jammed the key in, turned the ignition, and floored it. We sped away, and this stranger, started chasing us. It was dark, and we couldn't make out his face, but he was determined and fast. He kept up with us as we made our quick exit. The guy even jumped into a car as we were leaving the parking lot, and that's when we realized this was no prank. Steve was stepping on the gas, and Mark kept urging him to go faster because this stranger was relentless. He was following us in this old, battered green sedan. It was tough to see in the dimly lit night, but it was right there behind us, tailing us closely. We were now pushing our speed over 100 miles per hour, passing other cars on the road like they were standing still. The green car was still hanging about 10 car lengths behind us. At that point, we didn't care about getting pulled over. Our only focus was on getting away from this guy. Finally, Steve decided to pull off a gutsy move. He took an exit, and I'll never forget the screeching of the tires as he made a tight turn under a bridge, executed a U-turn, and got us back on the freeway. But now we were heading in the opposite direction. I've got to hand it to Steve. I was seriously impressed with his driving skills. The car pursuing us lost sight of us, and we managed to get back on the freeway, going in a completely different direction. Eventually, we reached our hotel, just around 30 minutes later than we originally planned. We couldn't help but wonder why that stranger had chased us like that, so we finally asked Steve what had gone down in the restroom. He explained that when he went in there, he encountered this man who was smoking. Steve asked Mark if he had any drugs, and Mark, quick as a whip, replied with a firm, "No, I'm not into that stuff." Well, that response must have really ticked the guy off because he started cursing Mark out. And when Mark walked away, that's when this guy started tailing him, leading to that wild and frantic chase. Looking back, we were just relieved that we managed to get out of that bizarre situation without any harm. The rest of our time in New Orleans turned out to be absolutely fantastic, and to this day it's one of the most memorable road trips I've ever had. Hello everyone! If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your support motivates us to create more content you'll love. Thanks a million. And if you've just subscribed, please drop a comment saying I subscribed. We'd love to welcome you to our community.